It was a bright and sunny morning when Alex finally stepped into the home he had dreamed about for years. The smart locks clicked open with a soft beep, and the lights adjusted automatically, welcoming him in. Everything felt perfect. Every wall, every gadget, every corner of the house screamed modern luxury. Alex could hardly believe that this beautiful, brand new smart home was now his. He had saved for years, worked hard, and finally, all his effort had paid off. As he walked from room to room, testing the voice-controlled lights, the smart thermostat, and the automated kitchen appliances, he felt a mix of pride and excitement. This was more than just a house. It was his dream, a place where he could finally relax and enjoy life. But Alex wasn't alone. There was someone he hadn't thought much about, Karen. She was his neighbor, and they had met a few times before moving in. At first, she seemed friendly enough. Always ready with a smile or a small talk about the neighborhood. But Alex had heard stories about people like her. People who seemed nice but could turn into a nightmare when things didn't go their way. Still, he had brushed it off. After all, who could expect trouble on such a perfect day? Karen arrived just as Alex was showing off his new living room. She was wearing a wide grin, holding a large bouquet of flowers. "I couldn't wait to see your new place," she exclaimed, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Alex felt a tiny flicker of unease but smiled politely. At first, Karen seemed impressed. She walked slowly around the house, tapping the smart panels and asking questions about every gadget. "Wow, so this is voice-controlled?" she asked, pointing at the lights. "And the fridge can tell you when you run out of milk?" "Amazing!" Alex nodded, happy to explain, thinking her curiosity was harmless. But then, little things started happening. Karen would press buttons she wasn't supposed to press, or walk into rooms without asking. She touched expensive decorations and even moved small items around. Alex laughed nervously. "Careful, that's new," he said, trying to keep the mood light. Karen just shrugged and smiled, acting like it was no big deal. As the tour continued, Karen's questions became more personal. "Do you live alone?" she asked, peeking into Alex's private study. "Do you always work from home?" Her tone was friendly, but there was something in her eyes that made Alex uneasy. Still, he didn't want to be rude. He told himself that maybe he was overthinking things. By late afternoon, the two were sitting in the living room. The house, which had felt like a dream just hours ago, now felt strangely tense. Karen sipped her coffee and kept glancing at the smart home controls. Every time Alex turned his back for even a second, she seemed to be fiddling with something. He tried to ignore it, thinking maybe she was just curious, but a small voice in his mind whispered, "Be careful." Then came the first warning sign. Karen reached for the voice-controlled thermostat and started changing the temperature wildly. Alex turned around just in time to stop her. "Hey, wait!" "That's set perfectly already," he said, his voice a little sharp. Karen laughed, but there was no apology in her tone. "I'm just testing it," she said. But Alex noticed her smirk, a smirk that didn't feel friendly at all. The tension in the room grew slowly, almost like a shadow creeping across the walls. Alex tried to distract her with a tour of the kitchen, showing her the smart oven and the refrigerator that could track groceries. Karen's excitement seemed genuine, but there was an edge in her behavior that made Alex's stomach twist. Something about her presence didn't sit right, but he didn't know what to do. As evening approached, Alex thought the visit would end. He wanted to enjoy his first night in the house in peace. But Karen didn't seem ready to leave. Instead, she wandered from room to room, inspecting cabinets, pressing buttons, and muttering to herself. Alex's polite smile began to fade. He realized that this woman, who had seemed harmless at first, might be more trouble than he had imagined. And then it happened. Just a small thing at first. Karen accidentally knocked over a vase. Alex gasped as it hit the floor, shattering into pieces. Karen looked shocked for a moment, but then laughed it off. "Oops. My bad," she said, shrugging like it was nothing. Alex's heart raced. This wasn't just a mistake, it was the first real sign that his dream home might not be safe with her around. He tried to calm himself, telling himself it was just an accident. But deep down, a tiny spark of worry began to grow. Something about Karen didn't feel right. Something told him that this was only the beginning of a long and stressful story. Little did Alex know, by the end of the week, this friendly neighbor would completely wreck his brand new smart home. And the police would be involved. The next morning, sunlight poured through the wide glass windows of Alex's smart home. The house seemed alive, almost magical. The blinds opened automatically, and soft music played from the hidden speakers in the living room. Alex walked slowly, enjoying the quiet hum of the smart devices syncing perfectly with his morning routine. Everything felt perfect. He had already started planning how he would use every room. The living room would be for relaxing and hosting friends. The kitchen was perfect for cooking experiments he had been dreaming about for years. Even the smallest bedroom could be a study or a game room. Every corner of the house screamed comfort, style, and innovation. It wasn't just a home, it was a symbol of his hard work and success. But even in paradise, shadows can appear. That afternoon, Alex heard a knock at the door. Before he could answer, the doorbell camera alerted him. It was Karen. Again! Her face was bright and cheerful, but her eyes seemed sharper this time, more focused. Alex sighed but smiled anyway. "Come in," he said, hoping it would be just a short visit. Karen stepped in, holding a small gift box. "I thought I'd bring something to celebrate your new home," she said, placing it on the smart coffee table. Her voice was sweet, but Alex noticed something strange. She was watching him more than the house. Her eyes scanned every corner, every gadget, as if she was learning, memorizing. A chill ran down Alex's spine, but he ignored it. Maybe he was overthinking things again. As they moved into the kitchen, Karen's curiosity turned into fascination. She opened drawers, pressed buttons on appliances, and tested every touch screen she could find. Alex tried to guide her politely. "That's not a toy," he said, pointing to the smart oven. Karen smiled innocently. "I'm just exploring," she said. But her tone felt different, slightly mocking, almost as if she knew she could push boundaries and get away with it. Then came the small warning signs, tiny, almost unnoticeable. Karen leaned on the kitchen counter, leaving fingerprints on the marble surface. She touched the smart fridge's control panel with more force than needed. She even peeked behind the curtains, where Alex had kept some personal boxes. Each little action felt like a warning bell ringing in Alex's mind. By mid-afternoon, Alex realized Karen was staying much longer than he had expected. She wandered into the living room, pressing buttons on the smart panels and laughing softly to herself. "It's so fancy! I've never seen a house like this," she said, but her tone had a strange edge, like she was plotting something. Alex forced a smile, trying to act calm. Suddenly, Karen's attention shifted. She walked toward the smart lighting control and started changing the colors rapidly. The lights flickered from bright white to neon blue, then to soft yellow. Alex rushed over her. "Wait! Stop! That's for tonight's mood setting," he said, his voice tight. Karen looked at him with wide eyes, pretending innocence. "I just wanted to see what it could do," she said. But Alex wasn't sure if he believed her. The tension in the air grew thicker with every passing minute. Alex tried to keep the conversation light, talking about the neighborhood and his plans for the house. But Karen wasn't listening. She was busy exploring, almost inspecting everything like a detective searching for secrets. Each time she moved from one room to another, Alex felt a growing sense of unease. Then, it happened again. A small vase on the kitchen counter wobbled. Karen's hand brushed against it, and Alex froze. "Careful!" he shouted. But it was too late. The vase fell, shattering into pieces across the marble floor. Karen looked startled for a moment, then laughed lightly. "Oops! I didn't mean to," she said, as if it were nothing. But Alex's heart was racing. This was more than curiosity, it was carelessness, or maybe something else. Something intentional. Alex wanted to leave, to escape the tension, but Karen didn't give him the chance. She moved to the living room again, touching gadgets, pressing buttons, and muttering under her breath. Each time he asked her to stop, she smiled and ignored him. It felt like a game to her. A dangerous, invisible game where Alex had no control. By evening, Alex realized that the dream house he had spent years saving for was slowly turning into a trap. Karen wasn't just a curious neighbor anymore, she was a storm he hadn't prepared for. Every smart device, every precious item, every corner of his home now seemed vulnerable under her presence. And deep down, Alex knew this was only the beginning. The peace he had felt that morning had vanished. Something about Karen's obsession with his house made him feel uneasy, like a ticking clock counting down to disaster. And he had no idea how fast that disaster was approaching. The next day, Alex woke up feeling excited to explore his smart home even more. He wanted to test some new routines he had set up, morning lights gradually brightening, coffee brewing automatically, and the smart blinds adjusting to the sun. Everything worked perfectly, just as he had imagined. For a moment, he felt like the luckiest person alive. But that feeling didn't last long. Karen showed up again, this time unannounced. At first, Alex thought it might just be curiosity. Maybe she genuinely liked his home. But something about the way she moved through the rooms made him uneasy. She wasn't just looking around, she was inspecting everything, her eyes lingering a little too long on gadgets, on personal items, on every corner of the house. "Wow! I didn't know your fridge could do this," Karen said, tapping buttons with her long nails. She opened the fridge multiple times, as if trying to memorize every item inside. Alex chuckled nervously. "Yeah, it tracks groceries automatically. It's really convenient," he said. But Karen's smile didn't reach her eyes. There was a strange focus in her gaze, almost like she was calculating something. Then came the first really strange moment. Karen wandered into the living room and started pressing the smart light panels again. But this time, she wasn't just experimenting. She started turning the lights off and on rapidly, in a pattern that made the room flicker like a strobe. Alex rushed over, startled. "Karen! Stop! You'll break the system," he shouted. She laughed, but it wasn't the light-hearted laugh from before. It sounded sharp, almost teasing, like she knew she was crossing a line. Alex took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Please, just don't touch anything without asking," he said firmly. Karen tilted her head and smiled. "Relax. I'm just having fun." But her tone didn't match her actions. It was unsettling, as if fun meant something only she understood. As she continued exploring, Alex noticed something else. Small items began disappearing from their places. A decorative candle, a remote, even a notebook he had left on the counter. Karen seemed to glance at them, then slipped them into her bag when Alex wasn't looking. At first, he thought he might be imagining things, but a creeping worry settled in his chest. Something wasn't right. By afternoon, the tension was thick. Alex tried to distract Karen with a tour of the backyard, hoping the fresh air would calm her. But even outside, she found ways to push boundaries. She started pressing buttons on the automated garden sprinklers and opening the garage door repeatedly. Each action seemed harmless alone, but together, it felt like chaos waiting to happen. Then came the moment that sent a shiver down Alex's spine. Karen leaned over and touched the control panel for his smart security system. Alex froze. Karen, no! That's private, he shouted, rushing toward her. But she just smirked, her fingers hovering over the screen. I'm just curious, she said, as if curiosity gave her permission to invade every corner of his home. Alex felt panic rising. His dream home, the place he had worked so hard for, suddenly seemed fragile. Every gadget, every expensive device, every corner of the house now felt vulnerable. Karen wasn't just curious anymore, she was testing limits, finding weaknesses, and enjoying the thrill of it. And then, almost as if sensing Alex's growing fear, Karen's behavior shifted again. She began moving faster, touching more things, muttering under her breath, almost like she was planning something. Alex's heart pounded. He wanted to stop her, to protect his home, but part of him wondered if she might do something irreversible. By evening, Alex knew it wasn't safe to leave Karen alone in his house anymore. The first cracks of trouble had appeared, small but unmistakable. And deep inside, he felt a sinking feeling, this was just the beginning. Whatever Karen had planned, or whatever she was capable of, was about to get much worse. The dream house that had felt magical just 2 days ago was starting to feel like a trap. Every beep, every automated sound, every flickering light reminded Alex of the storm quietly brewing in his home, and that storm had a name, Karen. It started like any other afternoon. The sunlight poured softly through the smart blinds, the speakers played gentle music, and Alex tried to focus on unpacking some boxes he hadn't opened yet. For a brief moment, everything felt normal, almost peaceful. But peace in this house was fragile, and Alex didn't know it yet. Karen was there again. She had a strange energy, different from before. It wasn't curiosity this time. Her eyes flickered with mischief, and the faint smirk on her face made Alex uneasy. She wandered the house like a storm waiting to hit, touching panels, pressing buttons, moving objects. Then it happened. First, the lights in the living room began flickering violently. Alex rushed over her. Karen! Stop! Please! But she didn't stop. Instead, she laughed softly and waved her hand, like she was conducting some invisible orchestra of chaos. The flickering lights reflected off the polished floors, creating shadows that danced wildly around the room. Alex's heart raced. Before he could react further, she moved to the smart kitchen. She slammed her hand on the fridge, opened it, and pulled out items carelessly. Milk spilled on the floor, a glass broke, and Alex stumbled, trying to clean up the mess. Karen didn't apologize. She just watched, her expression almost like she was enjoying the chaos she had created. Then came the worst part. Alex had installed a smart vase system, sensors that would alert him if something fell or was moved. Karen knocked over the main vase in the living room. It shattered instantly, sending shards across the floor. The sound echoed like thunder in the quiet house. Alex froze, his hands trembling. Karen, this is too much, he shouted, but she just smiled, almost proud of herself. Her destruction didn't stop there. She rushed to the study and began opening drawers, flipping through papers, and pressing buttons on the smart panels. The smart locks clicked and beeped repeatedly as she tried to override them. Alex's mind raced. This wasn't just mischief anymore. Karen was intentionally wreaking havoc, testing limits, and enjoying every second. The security cameras pinged alerts, and even the smart speakers tried to warn Alex about unusual activity. But Karen didn't care. She pulled the cords of the smart TV, disconnected devices, and even tripped a small fire alarm. Red lights flashed across the ceiling, sprinklers in the kitchen sprayed water everywhere, and Alex was drenched, slipping on the wet floor as he tried to stop her. For a moment, Alex felt completely powerless. His dream home, the place he had worked so hard for, was turning into a disaster zone before his eyes. And Karen? She was smiling, laughing, almost as if she had rehearsed this chaos in her mind. Then she did something that made Alex's blood run cold. She reached for the main smart panel in the living room, the one that controlled every device, every lock, every light in the house. Alex tried to grab her hand, but she twisted away. "Stop! You can't do this," he yelled. She looked at him, eyes glinting with defiance, and said, "Why not? This is fun!" In that instant, alarms blared loudly. The house's security system detected the unauthorized access and automatically called the local police. Karen froze for a second, realizing the severity of what she had done, but it was too late. The chaos had already been triggered, and the authorities were on their way. Alex stood in the middle of the wrecked living room, water dripping from the ceiling, broken glass underfoot, lights flickering wildly, and his heart pounding. The home he had dreamed about for years was destroyed in just a few minutes. And he realized something terrifying: Karen's actions were not random. They were deliberate. As he looked at her, standing in the chaos she had created, Alex felt a mix of anger, fear, and disbelief. How could someone be so careless, so dangerous, in a place that was supposed to be safe? And deep down, he knew that the next few hours would change everything. Because the moment the police arrived, the story of Karen's destruction of his brand new smart home would take an even more shocking turn. The chaos in Alex's smart home had reached its peak. Water from the sprinklers dripped down the walls, lights flickered violently, alarms blared, and shards of glass glittered on the marble floor like broken diamonds. Amid all this, Karen stood in the center of the living room, a wide, almost proud smile on her face. Alex's hands were shaking, his heart pounding in his chest. He couldn't believe what was happening. "Karen, what are you doing? Stop this right now," he yelled, his voice echoing across the wrecked house. Karen tilted her head, as if studying him, and laughed softly. "Doing what?" "Having fun," she said, her tone deceptively innocent. But Alex could see the sharpness in her eyes, a dangerous glint that made him step back. This wasn't just mischief anymore, this was deliberate. "Fun? Do you see what you've done? The lights, the fridge, the vase, the sprinklers, everything is ruined. You can't just destroy someone's home." Alex shouted, frustration and fear blending together. Karen's smile widened. "Ruined? No, Alex! I'm just showing you what happens when people get too comfortable. You thought this house was perfect, didn't you?" she said, pacing slowly through the chaos. Every movement she made seemed calculated, almost theatrical, as if she were enjoying putting him on edge. Alex clenched his fists, trying to control his anger. "Karen, this is my life. This is everything I worked for. I don't understand why you're doing this." His voice cracked, part desperation, part disbelief. Karen stopped and stared at him, her expression almost mocking. "Why? Oh, Alex, don't you know? Some people just need a reminder." "A little, shake up," she said, snapping her fingers. She pointed at the smart panel in the living room. "This? It's all too easy for people like me." Alex felt a cold sweat run down his spine. He realized that reasoning with her might be impossible. She wasn't just careless, she was unpredictable, dangerous even. He took a deep breath and tried another approach. "Karen, if you leave right now, I won't call the police. But you have to stop this, or you'll face real consequences," he said, trying to stay calm despite the adrenaline rushing through him. Karen's laughter echoed through the house. The police? You think they can stop me? You think anyone can stop me? She said, stepping closer. Her tone was sharp, almost threatening, yet she moved with a strange grace, like a predator circling its prey. Alex's chest tightened. He knew he had to act fast before things got worse. Karen! I mean it! Leave, now! Or I will call them myself! His voice was firm, trembling with urgency. For a moment, Karen froze. Her smirk faltered slightly as she noticed the seriousness in his tone. The tension between them felt electric, thick enough to touch. Then, almost suddenly, she laughed again, this time quieter, colder. Fine, if the police are coming, I suppose this is a good time to end the show, she said. Alex didn't relax. Something about the way she spoke made him uneasy. He could feel the storm that had already wreaked havoc in his home wasn't over yet. And then, distant sirens pierced the air. The sound of approaching police cars sent a shiver through both of them. Karen's eyes widened for a second, a flicker of panic crossing her face. But it quickly vanished, replaced by that dangerous smile he had learned to fear. Looks like the fun is over, for now, she whispered, before taking a step back toward the door. Alex barely had time to catch his breath before the flashing lights of police cars reflected through the windows. Within moments, officers were at the door, ready to intervene in the chaos she had created. As the police entered, Karen's defiance met reality. Handcuffs clicked, and the calm she had maintained through the destruction shattered. Alex watched, a mix of relief and disbelief washing over him. His smart home was wrecked, but at least the immediate danger was over. And yet, deep inside, he knew the story wasn't finished. Karen's chaotic energy had left a mark both on his home and on his sense of safety. The confrontation had ended, but the consequences of her actions were just beginning. The wailing sirens grew louder, echoing through the quiet streets as the flashing red and blue lights bounced off the walls of Alex's smart home. Inside, chaos still reigned. The sprinklers dripped water onto shattered glass, the smart lights flickered erratically, and alarms continued to beep, warning of the destruction that had unfolded. Alex's chest heaved with a mix of exhaustion, fear, and anticipation. Karen, who had just been teasing and defying him moments ago, suddenly froze. The playful, chaotic energy that had filled the house was replaced by something else: realization. She looked toward the front door, where the flashing lights were now unmistakable, and for the first time, a flicker of panic crossed her face. But she quickly masked it with that same chilling smirk that had haunted Alex for the past days. The front door burst open as police officers entered, their steps firm and purposeful. "Everyone stay where you are," one officer shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. The officers moved with practiced precision, taking in the scene: broken vases, spilled milk, water dripping from the sprinklers, and the once pristine smart home now looking like a war zone. Alex took a deep breath, relief washing over him as he realized the situation was finally under control. Karen, however, didn't move. She stood in the middle of the room, hands slightly raised, her smirk now replaced by defiance mixed with a hint of fear. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for destruction of property and reckless behavior," one officer said firmly, stepping toward her with handcuffs ready. Karen laughed, a short, sharp sound that echoed through the ruined living room. "You really think this is the end?" she shouted, almost theatrically. The officer didn't flinch. "Step aside," he commanded. With practiced efficiency, Karen's hands were secured in handcuffs. Her smirk faded completely as reality hit. Alex watched as the woman who had turned his dream home into a disaster zone was finally restrained. Despite the chaos, the officers maintained calm and control. One began documenting the damage while another spoke quietly to Alex, taking statements and asking about the timeline of events. Alex recounted everything: the subtle warning signs, the small accidents, and finally, the deliberate destruction that had escalated into chaos. Each detail seemed surreal, but seeing Karen in handcuffs made it real. Karen, now sitting on the edge of the couch with the officers watching her, muttered under her breath, trying to justify her actions. But her words were hollow, lacking the power they once had when she had been in control. She had been the storm, and now, she was trapped in the aftermath of her own creation. As the police prepared to take her away, Alex's mind wandered over the wreckage of his home. Every gadget, every smart panel, every decorative item had been touched, tampered with, or destroyed. But even in the midst of destruction, there was a sense of relief. The danger had passed, at least for now, and justice was being served. The officers carefully led Karen out, ensuring that the handcuffs held firm. Alex followed at a distance, a mix of emotions swirling inside him: relief, disbelief, anger, and a strange sense of closure. The woman who had caused him so much stress and fear was finally leaving his house. Once the police were gone, Alex stood in the middle of his smart home, surveying the aftermath. Water dripped from the ceiling, alarms beeped intermittently, and shattered glass crunched underfoot. The house that had felt magical just days ago now felt like a battlefield. But despite the chaos, Alex knew he had survived the storm. He had endured the confrontation, faced the destruction, and witnessed justice being carried out. And while his home would take weeks, maybe months, to repair, Alex realized something important: he had survived more than just physical destruction. He had survived the psychological storm that Karen had brought into his life. And that resilience, his ability to stand firm in the face of chaos, was something no one could destroy. Little did Alex know, the story wasn't entirely over. The consequences of Karen's actions would ripple far beyond the smart home. And there were still lessons to learn, both about trust and the fragility of even the most carefully built dreams. The house was quiet now. The alarms had stopped, the sprinklers were off, and the flashing lights had faded. But silence in Alex's smart home didn't feel peaceful, it felt heavy, like the air itself remembered the chaos that had unfolded. Shards of glass still glittered on the marble floor, puddles of water reflected flickering lights, and the smart panels, once pristine, now bore the scars of Karen's destruction. Alex walked slowly through the rooms, each step crunching on debris. He paused in the living room, staring at the shattered vase he had loved. His dream home, his carefully planned sanctuary, had been turned upside down in mere hours. Yet, despite the damage, a strange feeling of resilience filled him. He had survived the storm. He had faced the chaos and come out the other side. Karen was gone. The police had taken her away, and for now, there was peace. But Alex knew that this incident had left more than physical damage. It had left lessons, hard ones, about trust, boundaries, and the unexpected fragility of even the most perfect plans. He thought about how easily chaos could enter a life that felt secure, and how important it was to stay alert, even when things seemed ideal. As he walked through the house, Alex began making a mental list of what needed to be fixed: the shattered glass, the water damage, the broken smart panels. But beyond repairs, he realized he needed to rebuild a sense of safety. He had trusted someone too easily, allowed them too much freedom in his home, and it had nearly cost him everything. From now on, he promised himself, he would set stronger boundaries and be more cautious about who he allowed into his life and his home. Despite the devastation, Alex found small sparks of hope. The smart system still worked in patches, and the structure of the home remained strong. Each room reminded him of his hard work and the dream he had built for himself. Karen had destroyed objects, but she hadn't destroyed his spirit. The house could be repaired, his trust and caution could be rebuilt stronger than before. Alex paused by the front window, looking out at the quiet street. The sun was setting, casting warm orange light over the house. In that moment, he felt a mix of relief and determination. The chaos had passed, but the memory of Karen's actions would stay with him, a reminder of how quickly things could spiral out of control. He also realized something else. This was a story worth telling, not just for himself, but for anyone who had ever trusted too easily, for anyone who had ever believed in the safety of their dreams. The lesson was clear: always protect what matters, be cautious of those who seem harmless, and never underestimate the impact one person's recklessness can have. And yet, in the back of his mind, Alex couldn't shake a small feeling of unease. Karen was gone for now, but people like her didn't always disappear completely. The chaos she had brought was a warning, a reminder that the world could be unpredictable, and sometimes, danger comes in the guise of a smile. Alex took a deep breath and smiled faintly. His home was battered, but he was stronger. He had survived the storm, faced the chaos, and learned lessons that no destruction could erase. And as he began cleaning up, repairing, and rebuilding, he knew one thing for certain: life would go on, and this story, this nightmare-turned lesson, would shape him forever. The smart home would shine again. But Alex would never forget the day Karen had turned his dream into a disaster, the day chaos walked in through the front door, and the day he learned that even the most perfect plans could be challenged by the most unexpected storm. And somewhere, deep in the shadows of memory,